15, and 16 form part of one continuous thread of equality. Okay, and one is not a opposition to the other. And this development did not happen overnight. It is something. So when I mentioned to you Balaji and I mentioned to you N.M. Thomas, the transition from that 5-judge bench in the mid 60s to the 7-judge bench, and that I think has perhaps been the most profound shift in Indian constitutional law in that area of equality. Everything else is just reiterating that. You can take the 9-judge bench in Indira Sani, but the real shift happened, according to me, in the 7-judge bench with the absolutely brilliant decisions of Justice Ray, Justice Krishnayar, and Justice Matthew. The real paradigm shift in the interpretation to 14, 15, and 16. So therefore, 14 incorporates both numerical equality of treating each one equally if they're all the same, as well as the difference principle, sameness and difference, formal equality and substantive equality, numerical equality and proportional equality. All of this is embedded, and you can see it carefully as you unpack Article 14 to understand what does it permit and what all is permissible. The state, therefore, is a linchpin in not only protecting the equality but also creating equality. That's why I said 14, 15, and 16 have a static principle, but they also have a dynamic principle, and there is a mandate on the state to shift to a more equal society. Okay. Now, because classification is permitted, and we can see that classification is necessary, so let's just take up some cases dealing with classification. Now, because we are taking up cases of classification, okay, so maybe I will. Okay, so what can be classified? Groups of people who are. So, if I have a law, for example, that classifies and tells women that you can have, if a property is registered in the name of a woman, then the registration taxes are lower. Then that would be a classification of the law. The law doesn't treat everybody equally. It has one rate for men and it has another rate for women. The Hindu Marriage Act classifies on the basis of age. It says people below 18 cannot marry, people above 18 can marry. In Islamic law, it's 15, age of puberty, age of consent in some cases. Okay, so age can be, sex can be, other principles can be. So to be admitted into Delhi University, you need to have a law faculty, you need to have an undergraduate degree. So we are classifying law students here as people who have undergraduate or postgraduate degree, but at least you have an undergraduate degree and you have whatever is the minimum percentage now to get admitted. I don't know what it is now, 50. Okay. That's the minimum percentage that you need, and you must have qualified the test. Which means that everybody else is falling into another bucket. So intuitively, you can understand that equality requires that we treat people equally. Now, the real problem is not understanding in an abstract sense that the laws should be different for different people. The devil, as they say, lies in the details. How should these laws be constructed? And I'm going to take up for you a case, Anwar Ali Sarkar case, and okay, tomorrow, do I meet you tomorrow? Yes, do meet you tomorrow. I forgot it. Anyway, Kathi Rani Rawat is the case that I would like you all to study, but I'm going to deal with Anwar Ali Sarkar case. Now, Anwar Ali Sarkar has another interest for us from Article 13 point of view. Okay, and it's an interesting point of view because it is again dealing with a pre-constitutional law, and unlike Bikaji Narayan Dakras. And so there's a little side story that I need you to study and let me know, both Kathi Rani Rawat and Anwar Ali Sarkar. Because Keshava Madhava Menon, not Bikaji Narayan Dakras. Keshava Madhava Menon, you remember that that poor man had been prosecuted for publishing railway uh, मजदूरों के खिलाफ साजिश, राइट? उसने बेचारे ने ऐसे एक पर्चा प्रिंट कर दिया, and then they arrested him and then they prosecuted him under Press Act of 1931. Then he thought, अरे नया constitution हो गया, मेरा रद्द होगा, I will breathe like a free man. And then he found out that 13(1) is prospective. Had he been prosecuted after 26 January 1950, फिर वो बच जाता बेचारा. But because he got prosecuted before, फंस गया, he was going to be prosecuted. Now, why Anwar Ali Sarkar is interesting is that it is, when you look at Keshava Madhava Menon, and I'll have this discussion tomorrow once you've read Kathi Rani Rawat, similar facts, slightly different decision, that's why I want you to read it. But let me now explain my Keshava Madhava Menon's point. Here is a case which is a pre-constitutional law case, and the law gets struck down for violating of Article 14. Okay, it gets struck down under Article 13(1). Pre-constitutional law, violated Article 14, gets struck down. Okay. Once it gets struck down, that person who was prosecuted under that older law, he gets scot free. वो तो भाग जाता है. He doesn't get convicted at all. Okay. So is there a difference between the procedural principle of Article 13(1) and the substantive principle of Article 13(1)? That's a sort of implied narrative that I want you to read and reflect and tell me. Okay. Okay. But now let me come to Anwar Ali Sarkar, which is the first case. And let me begin this way by saying it is one of the rarest cases where a law gets struck down for Article 14. It may appear to you that with 13(1) pre-constitutional law and with 13(2) post-constitutional law should not violate 14, that many laws will get struck down on the anvil of Article either 13(1) or 13(2). But it will be a matter of surprise to you that maybe in the fingers of one hand you can count the number of times that the Supreme Court has ever struck down a law for violating Article 14. Most of the time, it has always tried to move in favor of upholding the constitutionality of a law and upheld it. It's very rare that it gets struck down. Okay. But the first case that came before the Supreme Court challenging a law for violation of 14 was Anwar Ali Sarkar case. And, it is as if the court began with a bang. It dealt the law and held it to be unconstitutional. But the same time that Anwar Ali Sarkar was being heard in 1952, January of 52, they were hearing a similar petition from Saurashtra, which is the Kathi Rani Rawat case. And the decision in that case is to uphold the constitutionality. The judgment there was delivered 2 weeks after Anwar Ali Sarkar. Anwar Ali Sarkar strikes down the law. Kathi Rani Rawat upholds the law. I need you to read and explain to me how this could happen when the facts are virtually the same. Okay, that's for tomorrow's exercise. Tomorrow's tutorial class. No, ma'am. No, it's Thursday. Fine. Yeah. So tomorrow I would want everybody. Now let me come back to Anwar Ali Sarkar case. Now in the state of West Bengal, because this is the period of partition and the riots. Okay. Remember that Gandhiji himself, during the time of 15th August 1947, Gandhiji was not in Delhi. He did not attend that historic session in Parliament. He did not come for the flag hoisting, etc., because he was, where was Gandhiji? Nobody meeting the. He was in West Bengal. Exactly. And the riots were going on, and you know that the correct number will never get known. But the number of people who died in partition, I can safely say, was far higher than the number who died in the Holocaust. The Holocaust puts its numbers at 3 million. And by any rough anecdotal evidence of oral histories of that period, the number of people who died in partition crosses way above 6 or 8 million. Okay. So, because of this brutal violence that was happening, the Bengal enacted its amendment to the criminal law. And what did they do? They created a Special Courts Act. So they created special courts for dealing with 4 categories of matters: offenses, classes of offenses, classes of cases, and cases. Classes of offenses. What is a class of offense? If you open the IPC, offenses against the body, that will be classes of offenses. Then, what are offenses? Within that, you could take murder, grievous hurt. Yeah, my mind is not working. Other things. Okay. Then, classes of cases. Classes of cases could be groups of cases police station wise, groups of cases geographically, or groups of cases that have similarities, and so you're clubbing them all together. And then cases will be individual cases. Okay, individual case diaries. Okay, so case of accused versus the state versus the accused. Okay, that would be an individual case. So what did the state of West Bengal do? It created a special legislation and a special court that was going to consider classes of offenses, classes of cases, four categories. And it said that these special courts will not follow the normal procedure of the CRPC as it then was, but they made significant changes to the procedure. Whereas under the CRPC, if you are dealing with offenses like murder, etc., you would need initially a committal proceedings where the magistrate will be prima facie satisfied that there is a prima facie case, and then committal proceedings will take place, and then the trial will begin. You're familiar with that. You have studied CRPC, right? Right, ma'am. Yeah. Yes, ma'am. So you know warrant, summary, all those. Huh? Okay. So it's not as if the FIR itself commences, that's only the investigation, and then you have to go to a committing magistrate prima facie, then committed with the committing the actual criminal trial will commence. In the special court, there is no need for a committal proceedings. Instead, it will straight away go for trial. Remember, at that time in India, we used to have a jury system, which you all know, that famous case, which is that case, Nanavati case. You have already seen that there was a jury system there. It went away only after the amendment. Now, in US, for example, we have a grand and a petty jury. So the grand jury is the one that performs the role similar to our committing magistrate to decide if there is a prima facie case or not. And after that, there will be another smaller jury, a petty jury, that will actually be the 12 wise men and women that will decide questions of fact. That's how it is in all the countries which have a jury system. So you have two juries, the grand and the petty jury, which is in our system substituted by the committal magistrate and then, of course, the trial judge. Fine. So In the special court, there is no committing proceeding, it will straight away go. Number two, another shift was that when the evidence is being recorded, uh, the entire evidence needn't be recorded verbatim, but the substance of the evidence alone needs to be recorded. Now, if you've been to a trial court, you know that the stenographer writes down everything that is put to the person in cross examination to be accused. The entire proceedings are put down. But here, certain defense evidence could be disallowed and need not be permitted. In a normal CRPC proceeding, the next difference was if you are able to point out that true full justice is not being done, de novo trial can start once again. So, for example, if you are counsel for the accused and you can indicate that for whatever reason there is bias or there is some procedural infirmity, you could ask for a de novo trial. That power for de novo trial gets taken away in the special court. Fourth, the fact that under the CRPC, transfer of a case could happen for whatever reason, that is disallowed in a special court. And in the special court, there's total exclusion of review and revision powers of the superior courts, which are normally permitted in normal trials. So I've just quickly tried to cover that in very many ways, this procedure to be followed by the special court, by the state West Bengal Special Courts Act of 1949, allowed a different form of procedure to be followed in these trials before these special courts. And what are these special courts? To which the government can refer classes of offenses, classes of cases, and cases. So if you were one of these four, then your matters would be heard tried by the special court, and the normal CRPC procedure will not apply. Now, the matter came up before the full. You remember that when our court began, we only had 7 judges. And just like the American Supreme Court, only there, of course, 9, we began with 7. And in the initial cases of 1950 and 51, the entire court sat en banc. That is, everybody was on the bench. So you can take A.K. Gopalan, you can take Anwar Ali Sarkar, you can take Kathi Rani Rawat, you can take Bharat Bank versus its workman. These are the leading cases of 1950 and 51. All 7 judges would sit. They never sat in separate benches. So it had one advantage that when the court speaks, it speaks as one. So you don't have the situation that developed later that one bench of 5 benches takes a view and another bench of 5 benches can take a view, because while they speak for the court, they are still only a subset of the court. So all 7 sat. And interestingly, in Anwar Ali Sarkar, all 7 wrote their separate judgments. And let me tell you now about Anwar Ali Sarkar, because tomorrow I'm going to discuss Kathi Rani Rawat and I'd like you all to please read it. I don't want this situation where I have 3 students who are willing to answer and tell me. My question is very clearly why it is different from Anwar Ali Sarkar, and I expect that you will all read it and read it intelligently and come. Now, do I have 5 more minutes or am I out of time? What is the time? Oh, ma. I'm already 152. Oh, I wanted to finish Anwar Ali Sarkar today. Okay, can I take 5 more minutes or do you have another class? Please take. Okay, so let me just take 5 minutes, okay? I'm sorry for this. Now, 5 judges, and in Anwar Ali Sarkar, Chief Justice Patanjali Shastri was in the minority. That's also quite unusual. Normally, the Chief Justice is very rarely in a minority. You know, normally, I don't see it subsequently that he's in a minority, but Chief Justice Patanjali Shastri was the only person who felt that these special courts and the procedure of the special courts was constitutional and it did not violate Article 14. And the reason Justice Patanjali Shastri took this view is he accepted the argument by the Attorney General that the intention of the government was only to pick up certain offenses, classes of cases which merited speedy trial and take it away there. And therefore, the intention of the government was pure and it picked up those that merited speedier trial because obviously the trial there would be quicker, there would be no committal proceedings, etc. It would go rapidly, defense evidence would be disallowed, there would not be the option to start de novo, there could be no transfer, so many things are there and therefore it would be quick. He also said it doesn't violate Article 14 because there is no intention to discriminate. So he accepted the and then he said that the fact that there could be minor discrepancies on the ground, which which could create disparities, that somebody somewhat similarly situated is going for a normal CRPC trial and others are going for speedy trial, is minor and doesn't merit discrimination. That is, minor deviations don't merit discrimination. But the 5 of the remaining 7 judges rejected the entire law outright. And who were they? Justice Fazl Ali, Justice Mahajan, Justice B.K. Mukherjee, Justice Chandrasekhar Iyer, and Justice Bose. So these remaining 5 completely held that the law is in its entirety unconstitutional. And then you have a remaining judge, Justice Das, who felt that it is unconstitutional for the fact that there is an ability to notify and pick up individual cases and treat them to be special courts. But when you are picking up classes of offenses, classes of cases, and offenses, then you're dealing with group matters, and this does not violate equality, and therefore it was valid. So, with respect to cases, the judgment went 5:6:1. And with regard to 1, 2, 3, that is classes of offenses, classes of cases, the decision is 5:2. 2, why? Because Justice Das upheld first, second, and third category. And what the court, Justice Das, did was he laid down the nexus text, and that's the reason Justice Das's judgment is very important. I think it's not correct for me to take over time. Many of you may have another class. So I'll continue tomorrow with Anwar Ali Sarkar, first 10 minutes, and then I'll move on to Kaki Rani Singh Rawat. And I would like every